done a show in a while, and it's super excited to be back with my good friend Tom here. And of course, I had all my notifications turned off, and they still pop up. I'm telling you, I cannot win. I cannot win. Anyway, I hope everybody is having a great day. Tom and I are super excited to get to talk to you guys about Ignite. Some of the things that we're most excited about, our tips and tricks, some of our favorite sessions. So I'll say a little bit about me, and then I'll hand it over to Tom, and he can kind of tell a little bit about himself. I am the Director of Innovation and Strategic Solutions at Planet Technologies, and right now I'm helping with the product launch of something called Evolve 365, which is end-user training and videos. So I spend a lot of time talking to our customers, learning about what they're doing in the Office 365 space. I spend a lot of time just learning about Office 365, everything you can do with no syntax and no semicolons. I have an extreme to syntax and semicolons. So everything you can do in SharePoint and Office 365 that doesn't involve that, then I'm your girl. So I'm excited to be here. And Tom, why don't you give us a quick introduction about yourself?
That sounds good. Thanks. Much like Jennifer, I'm pretty much allergic to semicolons. Also, I can do them, but I much prefer the whole, what can I do out of the box to make the most value happen without having to go into a lot of coding. So Tom Duff, I work as a SharePoint developer in a 3-person team for Cambia Health Solutions in the Pacific Northwest. We also encompass some of the Blue Cross Blue Shield plans in that area. And our team is responsible for our all things SharePoint. And we are starting a migration to Office 365 here. So where Jennifer kind of brings in the angle of a vendor looking at the whole environment and what things look like in terms of where Microsoft is going forward, I come more from the angle of I'm a customer who's dealing with whatever Microsoft is doing, where they're going. So we kind of bring 2 different angles and 2 different viewpoints into the different things that we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, and Ignite's got to be pretty interesting for you guys. If you guys are in the middle of a migration to Office 365, stuff probably matters a lot more at this Ignite than it did last year for you guys.
Very much so. Last year's Ignite was interesting. Myself and Sandra Mahan, who many of you might know, her and I went to last year's Ignite. And it was funny because when we came back from it, we were, like, I think on our 3rd year of trying to get approval to upgrade to SharePoint 2013. And we came back from there going, we don't need 2013. We need to go to Office 365. We need to make that leap. Mm-hmm. That will enable us to be on the bleeding edge or leading edge of the curve and really change the way that our company is doing the work. And out of that, things changed dramatically in a year. And so Sandra has picked up a lot of the driver force behind our migration to Office 365. She's doing a lot of the coordination amongst the different groups in the company to make that all happen. And what we are now looking at is, with this Ignite coming up, we were just going to send one person who was our system administrator. And then Sandra, who is on vacation in Cancun this week.
Oh, that's just so sad.
No, it's so sad for us. She was like, well, maybe I should go. And I'm like, in the role that you're playing, it would be really good for you to go. And yeah, I know that I can't go. And I know that 2 of the 3 people on our team would be gone, leaving me to handle everything, whether that's good, bad, or otherwise. But I really think it's important for her to be there and get that overall view of where things are going, because that's where she's going to live and breathe, and that's where we're all going to live and breathe for the next 6 to 12 months, big time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what she comes back with. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm also taking the angle on how can I participate in Ignite while I'm still sitting in my home office. How does that work? So it's an interesting combination. Hopefully my week will not go to pieces immediately after it starts. And I find myself, working 16 to 20-hour days trying to keep the system up while everybody else is out having fun.
Well, they're not going to be having fun. They're going to be working, Tom. We always
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no fun to be had.
No fun to be had.
It is all work.
All work.
All work and no play.
Yeah, no play happened
No
last year at
play.
all.
No play at all. Uh, well, we kind of wanted to get started with some tips and tricks to everybody. These are probably pretty common known tips and tricks, but things we kind of live by. My first tip is a very, very practical one. Ladies, this is not the week for your stilettos and fancy shoes. Although there will be some. Kathy Dew never disappoints when it comes to shoes, and I admire her for that, but I'll be in my flats and my tennis shoes. There will be a ton of walking around the GWCC. It is just a very, very huge area, and it's very likely you're going to be in a session on one end and then have to go all the way to the other end for another session.
And you're going to do that like 4 times a day.
Yes. So be prepared with shoes. One simple trick is to bring 2 pairs, so you rotate your shoes day to day, so that your feet don't get totally pained. But I would just be prepared for walking. Put on the pedometer, see how many steps you get. It's usually a good week for us. We get all of our activity rings on the iWatch because we have it there. So yeah, we'll get our walking in. Some of the other things to really just think about is networking should be the theme of everything. I love going to the conference, sitting down at lunch with people I've never met and just striking up a conversation. Hey, what do you guys, where do you guys work? What are you guys doing? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And so really anywhere you're at, most people are going to be responsive to networking. And I think a lot of the value from the conference is from attending people that are attending, not just from the Microsoft folks that are there and not just from the sessions. So
yeah, that's very, very true. I know that in my past technical life, I used to be part of the IBM Lotus Notes world. And Lotus Sphere was their big conference that was held down in Walt Disney World every year in January. It was wonderful. And that meant a lot to me on a number of different levels. But I remember the first time I went, and the first couple of times I went, it was like, okay, I went to sessions, I'm done, it's 5 o'clock, go back to my room. Because I didn't know anything, and I was the typical programmer type person who networking is when I look at the other person's shoes instead of my own when I'm talking to them. I've outgrown that slightly since then, but I found that once you started to get to know people, and if you took the chance to step out and actually say, I'm going to take a risk and say hello to this person I've seen online before, that really pays off big time. It enhances your conference experience tremendously. And with rare exceptions, none that I can think of right offhand, most of the people that you will say hello to that you may know as part of the community, we will not bite. And we actually like talking to people.
Yes. Those hours that I'm in the booth working and talking to people will just be so much better if people come up and have a conversation with you and just want to talk about different things and do all of that. And so I really encourage people, if networking is, like Tom said, if it's just looking at the other person's shoes, then just make a small, simple goal of, meeting one person a day or something along those lines. Even the people that you sit next to in sessions, getting to learn what they're doing and stuff like that, you can make some really great connections that last over time. And so it's really something that I think is really important to focus on, and us introverts, we need to do that proactively. Believe it or not, I am an introvert. So after we get going all day, there's nothing better than to curl up in my room and talk to no one. I will be exhausted after Ignite. But it's great, right? So we got to push ourselves out of our shell and just go out there and talk to as many people as we can and get to know as many people as we can. And that being said, it kind of goes with our next tip, which is be willing to go out of your comfort zone and go to sessions that you normally wouldn't. And so it's interesting. One of the things that has been a benefit of it going from a SharePoint conference to becoming all of Ignite and all Microsoft products is you get the ability to step across other platforms and go in and maybe see, learn about Azure or learn about Active Directory, learn something new about messaging, maybe something that's different than SharePoint. So, and different things like that. So I'm laughing in the chat window because Eric swears I am not an introvert, but I promise you I am.
Well, it's funny. I've seen a definition where people are trying to say, well, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? And this third category has recently come up, and I find that that suits me to a T, and that's the amnivert. And the amnivert is the person who, if given their druthers, they would like to hold back, but they can actually go out and talk with others. They can go out and party and be part of the group. But really, at the end of the day, they do need to come back to their room and recharge quietly. I thought, yeah, that's me, because I think I'm an introvert by all definition. But you throw me in a situation where there's others around, and I'm talkative, and I'm like, I come back and I'm like, that wasn't very introvertive type behavior, but I would much rather be in my room at times. So that's how come I have the wrist tattoo that says "say yes," because I need to force myself to go out and do different things like that.
Now, there's actually quite a few major speakers in the circuit, in the SharePoint circuit, that we're very introvert. We love to communicate, and we can get up and we can do that and we can do it, but then you start to see us wind down and we just have to recharge by ourselves. So I totally get Ignite. It can be very, very overwhelming, and just lots of crowds and stuff like that. And you can ask most people, you don't usually see me. I turn into a pumpkin after about 10 p.m. Not the late night person. Most people, you don't see me at night. It just doesn't happen, and that's usually because I've been on all day, and it's time to relax. So it's kind of knowing your limits and knowing what you can do, but all good stuff. Too funny. All right. Some of the other things that we have are, let me get my mouse back over here. Maximize your time in the exhibit halls. So I have attended Ignite with some people that never even went into the exhibit halls. And so really, are you one of those, Tom? You don't go in there?
I guess because I feel intimidated by the whole, this is a person trying to sell me something. And I know some people are like, oh, I'm going to go in and get swag. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. I'm always afraid I'm going to get caught in a 30-minute demo face-to-face with somebody on a product that I don't want. I really just want your piece of swag. And can I go on? Because there's other things I want to do, and I'm never going to buy your product. To be honest, yeah, I did go through there a few times, but it's usually around the edge. Am I looking for people that I know? But generally speaking, in my role, I'm not responsible for specific products. So I tend to shy away from there and go more towards the sessions than the floor.
Well, and I like that, except for I like the areas that are not necessarily vendor specific, right? So this year they're going to have community sessions, and they're going to have like the Office booth and the Exchange booth and the Power BI booth. And those are going to be manned with a lot of the Microsoft product teams. And so you're really disservicing yourself if you just don't go and have a conversation with them and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Who should I be talking to? Because a lot of times you go through the booth, and if we're not the right person to talk to, the booths are usually manned between Microsoft employees and what they call staff, which are usually MVPs or community members, partners that come in and actually help answer questions and stuff like that in the booth. But they can connect you with somebody else or connect you with the sessions you should be going to. But it's a great opportunity to meet one-on-one people that you might not be able to meet. And so I really like the vendor hall for that type of engagement. There's usually, every time it's open, there's somebody in those booths to talk to.
I'm shy and easily intimidated. What can I say?
Well, yeah, no, it's fun. There should be some good stuff. I know there's going to be a ton of vendors out there, and I'm like you, Tom. I do not want to get stuck into a 30-minute sales pitch, because 30 minutes at Ignite is precious time. Exactly. So you want to make sure that if you go into those, go into the booth, just kind of know your boundaries. Have a plan. Are you going to, walk down one side and go up the other, hit it during one of the receptions? I know there's a lot of receptions going on out there. There's usually somebody that's got beer and crackers and all of that. There's Melinda's saying there's a lot of speakers that will be in the expo hall all the time. There's community sessions, and then some of the booths, some of the bigger vendors are actually having sessions in their booths. So I'm participating in a couple of panels. So there's a lot of good content that can be in there. So I definitely say check it out. And if you're on information overload and you just don't think you can go to one more session, that area is a great area to go. Grab a table, relax, maybe start talking to people, really dig in with some of that networking thing. So I think it's a a great thing to look at. And I love our next tip. And Tom, I'm going to kind of talk to this one because you added it, and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't add this on the first pass.
Yeah, you know what? When I started going to conferences back in the olden days, when my beard was still kind of non-grayish, they would give you the notepad, and they would give you a couple pens, and that's what you took notes with. And if you were a cool kid, you had a phone, not a smartphone, but a phone or a pager. But that was the extent of what you needed to do. And your phone would usually last like 4 or 5 days in that kind of a situation. Well, now everybody's got iPads and Surfaces and smartphones of varying varieties and laptops and sometimes all of the above. And the main thing that then comes into play is, oh my God, I'm at 20% and it's only 30, it's only like 11 o'clock. What am I going to do? Always be charging, or as my friend says, ABC. Power is truly king. And if you find yourself in a session where you just happen to have grabbed a seat next to an outlet, avail yourself of that. Stick a power strip in there if you're really nice, because then other people can share it too. But go ahead and take the opportunity to recharge whenever and wherever you can. And what I find is it's a really good investment, not only for the conference, but for other things too, is go out and buy yourself a power pack, a battery pack, that is probably somewhere in the 20,000 to 40,000 milliamp range. They're not small like the 5,000 milliamp ones that are like yay so big.
That you get in the vendor hall from all the free swag.
That one, yeah. Those are fine for emergencies, but realistically, those are only going to get you maybe one full charge, depending on what kind of phone you have. And then when you get back to your room, you're going to have to charge your phone and that. If you have a 20 to 40,000 milliamp one, then what you'll find is that you can usually get like 2 or 3 days worth of supplemental power out of it. And you'll probably want to go back and still recharge your things when you get back to the room, like your phone and your laptop and things like that. But at least you can be doing that throughout the day on your battery pack when you're going from session to session. And I find that helps a whole lot. I highly advise getting a battery pack. I don't leave home without them, and quite often I leave with 2 or 3. That's good. And then the one right after that, I love the Toy Story movies. And one of the scenes in there was when they're all moving. And one of the things is you have to go out and find a moving buddy. And your moving buddy is going to help make sure that everything goes well and that you get there properly and the whole bit. I find that having a conference buddy makes a huge difference. As I mentioned before, I used to go to conferences all by myself, and it's a very lonely feeling, and it doesn't help with networking either. The first time I ever stepped out and did the buddy thing, even though I didn't call it that at the time, is I was part of an online discussion forum, and there were like 5 or 6 different people that were regulars in there that I chatted with, and we all decided, hey, why don't we all meet in person, in real life, face to face, between the Swan and the Dolphin hotels at the boat launch? And that was the first time we got to actually meet each other. Yeah. And it's been a lifelong friendship since then. And then when you go to future conferences, like, oh, I know this person, that person, that person, and then you grow that out from there. So go with somebody if you can, or at least figure out, is there somebody that you can meet there, preferably somebody that might even be more outgoing than you are. I am extremely fortunate in the fact that I work with Sandra Mahan. Sandra Mahan has never met a stranger. And I swear, she walks into a room, and within 5 minutes, she knows everybody there. Everybody has made her acquaintance. And I just kind of skate on her coattails. And yeah, I can do it on my own, but I know when I walk in with Sandra, Sandra's going to include me in stuff. Sandra's going to introduce me to people that I haven't met. And it's going to be a lot easier for me to make contacts based on who she knows than going by myself and doing it. So if you can find that special person, especially if they're an extrovert, go for it. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. I love the conference buddies. I've got a couple of them. You'll usually find me hanging out in a pack of 3 or 4 people most of the time that we're meeting up with and stuff like that. And it's great because you get to share, you get to divide and conquer,
Right.
share information with each other and different things like that. So let's talk a little bit, Tom, before we bust into like what our key sessions are and what we think are going to be excellent for the users in our space. Let's talk a little bit about selection strategy and
Sure.
how you pick what sessions you're going to be attending and different things like that. And so I loved kind of your perspective on it. I think you really need to have a plan when you go into it. I know I've personally sat down and I've already mapped out the sessions that are most important to me, the ones that I'm going to really, really try to get to. I'm still waiting on some scheduling pieces, so I'm hoping I'm going to get to all the ones that I really want to. Thankfully, everything will be recorded, and almost everything. I don't think the 20-minute sessions are being recorded.
Right.
But the larger sessions will be recorded, so I'm super excited that I'll be able to watch them post-event. So that's kind of exciting. But Tom, when you look at it from your perspective as somebody who's in the organization doing this day to day, what are the key things that you look at when you start saying, what am I going to do at this session?
Right. Yeah, I've tried to go on occasion. I think when I first started going to large conferences, it's like, oh, I'm just going to go there and I'll decide what I'm going to see when you get there. Don't do that. Do not do that. That is a bad, bad thing. And granted, back in that days, you didn't have a lot of pre-planning information like you do now. Now you have an overload of it, and schedulers and build your calendars and all this stuff, which is great. But just trying to go and ad lib it, you'll come back either thinking you missed a lot or thinking you hit a lot of things and you missed a lot. You just don't know it. So a lot of it depends on where you're at in your career or what's currently going on in your company. So there's been times where I've gone in and said, okay, I'm going to focus really deeply on one subject. Maybe it's, say, for instance, the citizen developer tools, such as Power Apps and Flow. Okay, anything and everything having to do with those, I'm going to go there. I'm going to meet the people who are doing that. I'm going to go to vendors who support that. Mm-hmm. And you'll touch other things, but by and large, you're there for one reason only. And that's not bad, except that you miss out on everything else. There's other times, and this is a little bit of where Sandra's actually focusing this time, is that since she is responsible for a lot of different things under the Microsoft umbrella for Office 365, she needs to be able to find things out in areas that she's normally not responsible for. So, hey, do we need to know something about Dynamic CRM? We have no knowledge of Dynamic CRM, but Sandra needs to be able to talk about it coherently. So she needs to decide, which is the next bullet point, do I want to get longer deep dive sessions on those things, or do I want something more high level? And my attitude on that one is, if you don't know what it is you don't know about the topic, I'm always going to recommend that you go for something higher level. Because I would much rather get that 20-minute overview or that 45-minute overview and understand maybe half of it, that then gives me the context to be able to go into a deep dive 75-minute session and actually understand it.
But you could also, in those sessions, if you do get into a 75-minute session of something you don't know, a lot of it could be just the whole goal of the session is to help you identify what you don't know.
Exactly.
So you can keep digging in. You can keep digging in later and drill down and do that. And so I love when teams go. I remember way back in the day when I first started out, I was working at a company, and every year they'd send about 5 or 7 of us to Tech Ed. And I remember going to Tech Ed Boston, and we would divide and conquer, and we'd have planning meetings, and then we would all get together every day for lunch and talk about what we had learned and how it applied to the organization. And then afterwards we'd then share that information. And so I think if you are going with coworkers, try to divide and conquer versus staying at all of the same things together, because you'll get a lot of different perspective by kind of, going out there and doing those different pieces.
Yeah, and Sandra and I will do that a lot when we go to conferences or SharePoint Saturdays, is we'll look at our schedules and I'll say, well, for this hour, I'm going to go here. She goes, yeah, I was thinking about that one, but I'm also thinking about that other one. Well, fine, you go to that other one, I'll go to this one, and then we got coverage on both.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
that works out really well. Another reason why Conference Buddy can work out really well too, as you mentioned. The other thing that's kind of a variation on, do I want to go high level or do I want to go deep dive, is think about whether or not that deep dive information is going to be available to you after the fact. So for instance, let's say I have a 20-minute session on, we'll use Dynamic CRM. I know nothing about it, but I want to get a high-level overview. But there's also a session at that same time, or that's up against something else I really want to see, on an in-depth deep dive for Dynamic CRM. Well, I know that 75-minute session is going to be recorded. I've got the option to say, I can do this later. I don't have to do it now. And if that's the case, opt for what's going to give you the benefit and can't be repeated. So.
And I think there's also value in looking at who the speakers are.
Oh, yeah.
So you look at speakers and know if it's a Microsoft presentation and solely Microsoft, they may be talking about new content. They're probably going to be very close on point to messaging. If it's a Microsoft person and an MVP mixed together, it's probably going to be a wonderful blended mix of real world as well as what's coming from Microsoft. And so there's a couple of sessions like that. One I'm thinking of right now is Adam and Laura. They're doing a session on doing things with the new modern list and libraries and the new modern SharePoint and building out business solutions. And that's going to be a perfect blend of the Microsoft messaging and real world scenarios put together. There's some that Ben from ShareGate and some other Microsoft folks are doing together. And I think it's just going to be a beautiful blend together. And so I think then there's also others that if it's a pure Microsoft cast of players and the title has anything to do with what's new or what's coming, then it could be announcements coming out. And so you definitely can, from that, you can kind of tell the type of session you're going to get. Also, if it's just a straight up vendor session, that can also, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with vendor sessions. You just want to go into them with your eyes wide open. You don't want to go into a vendor session expecting Microsoft. Right. You don't want to go into an MVP session expecting Microsoft content. The same way you don't want to go to a Microsoft session and expect that it's going to be all real world examples. And so it's good that you can kind of look at who the speaker is and then you can kind of see.
Yeah, and if you've got experience with some of the speakers, quite honestly, there's some people that I will go to their session, I could care less about their topic. I just want to watch them speak because they are so good at it that I shift into I'm not here to learn your content, I'm learning how to deliver a session. And I've been guilty of that usually at least once in a conference, that I will go to somebody who it's a guilty pleasure to watch them present. So yeah, that's always excuse me. Continuing on here, how much is too much in one day? Jen mentioned this one. It's like, yeah, you can get to the end of a day. People are like, well, all you did was sit and listen all day. It can't be that hard. No, it can really be much harder than you expect. And by the end of the day, you're just like, nothing else is going in. It's bleeding out my ears. I need to stop. I need to go do something entirely different. And hopefully the stuff that comes after that point, I can catch either recordings or whatever, but I can't take anymore. And that's very valid. And if you try to push past that point, you start putting yourself into a deficit for the rest of the conference. And that's not a good thing either. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So
yeah, most definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about the concept of the fear of missing out. And you brought that up, and I really liked when we were talking as we were prepping for the session about that concept. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of applies to the scenarios we're talking about?
Yeah, so a lot of times I'll go to conferences thinking, I've got to see everything. I've got to do everything. Oh, I missed that party. Oh, I missed that gathering. Oh, I missed that session. Face it, you're going to miss the party, the session, the 3 sessions that are absolutely must-see that are all scheduled at the same time at opposite ends of the building. You're going to miss out. Just get over it. What I like to do is opt for non-repeatable events and moments. If they're the thing that's not recorded, can't be repeated. It's the party or the networking event that you can't go back and run a recording of it and watch it. opt for those over the things that I can go watch this later if I need to.
Yeah.
Because you really want to get the most out of it. The only legitimate fear of missing out that I think is real is if at 5 o'clock after your last session, you go back to your hotel room and don't come out, then yeah, you've missed out on a lot. Don't do that. You need to put yourself out there. You need to experience what the conference is all about, and it's not just all about sessions.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the majority of it is what you get beyond the sessions and then just the experience of being there.
I mean, I look at what came out of Ignite for us last year. What came out of Ignite is we're going to Office 365. That was huge. That's changed our entire team, our entire company direction. And it wasn't just because we sat in sessions. It was because we experienced the whole conference and caught the vision.
That's awesome. You're just a case study there. That's awesome.
Yes, I'm just a teaching hospital for everybody.
I love it. Okay, well now let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk through what are some of the major sessions in the SharePoint space. And so this is kind of going through breakouts as well as keynotes and different things like that. I think the major one that people, if you want the all up SharePoint, this is our vision, this is our statement, and that's going to be the session that's on Monday afternoon, and Jeff Teeper's delivering it. And it's Learn How SharePoint is Reinventing Content Collaboration, Vision, and Roadmap Updates. And so this should be very much a continuation of the Future of SharePoint event that happened in May. We're going to see what have they been doing, what are they doing. I highly recommend if you're in the Office 365 and the SharePoint space that you come to this keynote and be flexible with your schedule. As much as we say having a plan is important, when you get there you still have to be flexible enough. So if you hear something in a session, maybe it impacts the other sessions that you go to or the people that you want to talk to in the booths or something like that. And so I highly recommend hearing Jeff. He's one of my favorites. I know the team has worked so hard on the presentation that they have going on. So I just love to hear, the refreshing vision of what SharePoint is and how important it is to everything. And so this session should be a key one. I believe this session is going to be live streamed as well. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I believe this one is.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's, during the week, again, provided that my life is not going down the drain while everybody's gone. Those are a couple of the sessions I plan on watching live as they're streamed.
Yes, and you should know when the sessions are going on. If they're not live, you can just hang out on Twitter and we will be all
Exactly.
Yeah. And then so beyond that, there's some other sessions here, and each one we kind of click out to where they're at. But drive productivity with OneDrive and SharePoint file collaboration. Can anyone say next generation sync client? Yay. And everyone needs that and wants that. So I am sure there is going to be news and updates and information on the next gen sync client. What's coming to SharePoint with modern team sites? I have to say that this is one of the sessions that I absolutely want to be in. I'm excited to see what they're doing. I keep going between absolute fear and absolute excitement, absolute wonder, absolute relief, absolute what's happening as I see different features. And so I think it's going to be really important to see what's coming. We've seen some of the stuff in the blogs. I haven't been lucky enough to have a first release tenant where things have hit yet, so I keep trying and looking. But I've seen different things, but I'm very interested to hear their messaging on it and see what's coming and what is going to be different and how is it going to be there. So I'm super excited about those sessions as well. One that you kind of mentioned, Tom, was the building Power Apps with Microsoft, or building apps with Power Apps and Microsoft Flow. I know Marwana is going to be giving that session, and that session is going to be absolutely fantastic. So I'm super excited about that session. I'm more excited about people getting access to seeing some of the content and getting some deep dives in so that people can learn more about what it can do. I know there's the huge elephant in the room, which is InfoPath, and what
I love InfoPath.
Everyone loves it, and in 10 minutes I could ask you again and you could come and say, I hate InfoPath. It's this relationship that we have. I feel the same way with it, and SharePoint Designer and all of these other pieces. And so they've made huge improvements in these areas. Still not a one-to-one match, but huge improvements. And so, Tom, I'm really interested to see how you guys incorporate Flow and Power Apps into your migration when you guys go over, because you guys build a lot of these quick little apps and solutions, and I'm wondering how well it will fit those needs.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that also, because we try to, if at all possible, stay out of the box with everything.
Yeah.
So, if we're saying, oh, well, we need to do something and crack open Visual Studio, we're like, no, you need to find other tools. SharePoint ain't going to do it for you.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it for you in SharePoint is what it probably means. But yeah, the whole citizen developer thing of being able to take a power user, enable them to come up with solutions on their own that we can either help them with, or they can leverage stuff that we've done to build on it, and we don't have to continue to build things for a company of close to 6,000 people with only a team of 3. I'm all for those kind of things that allow the business areas to do work and be productive on their own.
Most definitely. I'm looking to grab the link of the Sway that we have. So I can put that in there. So as we keep talking, I'll get the Sway added. Someone was asking for the URL. So I'll grab that for everybody. Some of the other sessions, I'm excited about this one too, because I feel like one of the things that we lost when we went from on-prem to Office 365 was the ability to get usage reports on what users are touching, what they're doing, who's doing what. And so they have a whole session about that this week. And it's delivered by Microsoft. So that's another interesting one as well, which means we might learn some new goodies that are coming. So I'm excited about that one, because I feel like that's a very practical session of something that we've all been waiting for, and kind of we'll get a breath of relief when we can be like, oh, finally, that's back.
Yeah.
So I'm super, super excited about that one. There's the one from Richard Harbridge. This session, we kind of talk about this one a lot. Learn what to use when between Office 365 groups, SharePoint team sites, Yammer, and OneDrive for Business. So I know that that's a topic that a lot of people have questions about. So Richard does a good job doing a presentation about that. And he can kind of share the ins and outs and some of the things there. And there's so much change that's coming between groups and team sites and all of it. And so that's going to be a very interesting topic that I think will keep coming up. Let's see. Some of the other ones, getting the most out of the new Microsoft SharePoint. That's the one that I talked about with Adam and Laura. That one is going to be fantastic. I am super gutted that I am in a panel at the same time as that one. They're just both excellent presenters, and they have such a passion for SharePoint and this community and working hard on getting that messaging out. So that's probably the #1 session that I think is just going to be fantastic for everybody. So I look forward to watching the repeats of that one, but unfortunately I will be doing a panel session at a vendor booth, and I will not be able to catch that one. And then some of the OneDrive features, they've got a couple of OneDrive sessions out there, and then just collaborating with Microsoft Office 365. I believe Dan Holm and Katie Dundas are doing that session together. And so I think there's just a lot of really, really great content. And so as I look through the list, this was kind of my key list. Tom, do you have any that you are that you thought of or liked or
Yeah, actually our lists, my list as far as you went isn't that different.
I didn't think it would be, yeah.
Yeah, we are both going for the stuff that's the more practical. How do you do this? What's coming up with that, rather than the, oh, how do you code a REST API? And like, no, later. I need to learn that. I'll go learn it later. The only other things that I'm also focusing on in terms of recorded sessions and stuff like that is ones on user adoption and training, because that's one of the things that we want to look at very strongly as we get our migration, is to make sure that the people understand what are the different pieces, when should they be used, when shouldn't they be used. And we kind of have a chance now to, instead of just replicating our errors over time, when we've gone from SharePoint 2007 to SharePoint 2010, where we've been since 2009, I think 2012. We have a chance to make a difference in how people look at the product, and so we really want to focus on that. So that's one of the things I'm going to definitely focus on in terms of after session viewings.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot in the last 4 or 5 months, really since May and the future of SharePoint. There's been a lot of modern is the new black, right? There's the new little black dress that we all want to wear. Everyone wants it this year. It's modern, it's new, and I'm really curious to see what are examples of it actually being used in the sessions that they're giving, when they're showing demonstrations and they're showing what's there, to be able to see how is this going to impact users. I've had a lot of really great success showing some of the new modern features. I've had some successes and some, we could do this differently, but it's been great. But there's, a whole new way to do things, and I think it's going to change and simplify a lot of what we do. And so there's different levels inside of SharePoint right now. I have a SharePoint site, and then I have to do some level of customization to it to get it to do what I need to do, or I have to do a lot of level of customization to it to get it to be this other thing.
Right.
I think that a lot of what they're doing is going to make that first realm a lot easier, where we can just get up and going and have what we need easily, maybe without a lot of extra work for getting things set up and getting things started. And so I'm really thinking that it's going to impact. And we have gone, how many years have we gone with SharePoint where there haven't been significant changes for how you work with a list and how you work with views and what you do? And now we're seeing some of those changes. And so I think it's going to be very interesting and very eye-opening, especially for people that haven't seen a lot of it already. And so I think there's going to be a lot of information to consume at Ignite next week.
Yeah, the use cases that we became familiar with back in 2007 and carried on through 2010 that I've been using, to date, you kind of get into that comfort zone of, I can do it this way and this way and this way and this way. Well, Office 365, yeah, you could probably do it that way, or as we laugh about when I'm brainstorming with Sandra, I'll go, well, I'm thinking of doing this, 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 and this, and she go, okay, you could do it that way, which is key for, I think I have a better idea that will work much more succinctly in this particular scenario. And invariably, she's right. But yeah, there's a lot of use cases that we're going to have to go over and rethink and get rid of in our tool chest and put new things in there.
But I think it's going to be awesome. And so I'm really excited about it. So I think it's great. If anyone has any questions about the sessions or anything like that, please let us know in the chat window. But I really think if you were to focus on these sessions, and most of these sessions are spread out throughout the entire week. So honestly, if I did not have other commitments and responsibilities, I would be at all of these sessions. I guess I should have listed my own session in here, right? Like, aren't I supposed to do a bit of self-promotion? I'm hosting a couple of panels. So on Tuesday, I have a panel where Kathy Dew, myself, and John White are going to be talking about how the heck do you keep up with all of the changes that are coming inside of Office 365 and kind of managing that process. And that's Tuesday morning. And then the last session of the day on Thursday, we have a panel with myself, Benjamin Nyland, Christian Buckley, Susan Hanley, and Fabian Williams, and I think I'm forgetting, and Jason Himmelstein. So that is like the MVP panel. So and
all-star lineup.
Anything about SharePoint. And so that is going to be a super fun panel. There's 6 of us together. And so highly recommend you guys come to that one too. You'll probably get some good laughs and some good information at the same time. So. All right. So enough self-promotion. Tom, why don't you talk us through, since you are not going to be getting to go to Ignite, I kind of shared some of our tips and tricks for actually being there. What about your tips and tricks for watching from afar?
Yeah. It was funny back in my Lotus Sphere days, which was like 97 through 2013, I think. I only missed one during that time. And to miss that was devastating to me, because so much of who I was and really who I am today was a result of attending that conference on an annual basis. And so, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not quite sure which one it is yet. I'm not quite at that point with Microsoft conferences. So if I don't get to go, I was the one who suggested, hey, Sandra, definitely make a play to go to this one and take T with you because T needs to go. And I will stay home and, make sure that everything keeps running here. Yeah, I'd like to be there. I'd love to be there, but I'm okay with that. So knowing that this is as big a deal as it is and looking at what we're doing with Office 365, this is kind of like a critical point for us. In some ways, maybe a little more so than last year's was. So the one thing that is a huge kudos to Microsoft is the fact that they record these sessions and make them available. Sessions I've gone to, yes, Eric, I am in notes recovery. Back in the old Lotus Notes days, they would probably record maybe like 20 sessions and make them available via videotape that you had to then buy. And as time went on and technology increased and you're looking at Microsoft conferences going, wow, everything they do is like immediately available up on Channel 9. How come you guys aren't doing this? Well, that would deplete the value of the conference for the people who paid money. Well, yeah, where did that actually get you? Okay. So I love the fact that Microsoft makes these things available to everybody, whether they're conference attendees or not. So you really have no reason for not being able to participate in a conference in some way, shape, or form, content-wise. So definitely take a look at where the conference videos are posted. Watch them. Take advantage of that. I also recommend that you follow your favorite resources, whether they be group accounts or whether they be individuals out on Twitter. If they blog, follow their blog, follow them on Facebook, because what you'll get is you'll get the Microsoft message, which is good. And I know Microsoft would like to have everybody in lockstep doing exactly what it is the message is. But invariably, there's the other side of the story with the MVPs and the community experts are very good at sussing out. And so I think you really need both of those. And again, you don't have to be there on site to get that. And in fact, if you are on site, it may be easier to only get the Microsoft side of it because you won't have time to follow the Twitter accounts and the Facebook entries until after the fact. So definitely look at all those things to get more of a rounded view of what people are thinking and where this actually might work in reality versus what the vendor would like it to look like and would like everybody to believe. Also, don't get really upset if there's like one or two people who are completely and totally down on what was announced.
Debbie Downers.
Debbie Downers, yes. It may be that they have a valid point, but it may just be that that's the way that they react to stuff. So don't take any one source as, oh, well, so-and-so said it was horrible, so this must be really bad. Get the opinion from 3 or 4 other experts, measure that all together, and come up with your own opinion. And it may be that what they're doing, like the whole citizen developer stuff with Flow or Power Apps, somebody who's really into building stuff in Visual Studio, they're probably going to look at those and go, yeah, toys, those are no good. Or somebody's going to say, well, InfoPath is bad. It's horrible. You shouldn't be using it. But then you've got people like myself who are in the front lines going, we do really cool stuff with InfoPath.
Yeah.
And we're delivering value on a day-to-day basis. We've got a presentation coming up for Collab 365, Sandra and I, called SharePoint and the Story of a Mutant Frog. And it's one that we love to do, but it's about a rewards and recognition program that went from idea to theming to concept to reality in less than 24 hours. Huge success. And it was all out of the box.
Yeah.
So you need to blend those things based on where you're at and what this means to you in your scenario, not just what everybody says it should mean.
Microsoft guidelines, there's best practices, and then there's the real world.
Exactly.
It all blends together in some way, shape, or form. And the best SharePoint solution is one that people actually use,
Mm-hmm.
not one that has the best bells and whistles.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I hear you completely.
Yeah. And then the final thing I suggest is you can put together your own mini Ignite or virtual Ignite and do your own little learning things. So one of the things we had talked about as a team when it looked like only one of us was going is that perhaps we would pick one or two videos.
Watch them together.
Yeah. You know, let's fire it up. Let's have discussion. Let's see what comes out of it. Let's watch the keynotes together. Let's chat back and forth about what you think. Oh, that sounds great. That doesn't. You can do that on your own. And yeah, you may not get the cocktails, the pizza, the beer, and the swag, but you're still going to come away with more information than you had beforehand. And you're going to get the value of the Ignite sessions and the whole Ignite experience in a way that you're not going to get if you just ignore the whole thing because you're not there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's even one thing you could do is set time off on your calendar and shut your office door and watch. Usually they try to get the Channel 9 videos the day after, as long as everything's there. So they'll get the Channel 9 videos up and you could, knock off an hour or two on your calendar and just mark yourself as busy. So you can kind of watch and listen to the sessions. And I think you can still get a tremendous amount from the conference by not being there.
Yeah, it's the whole sharpening your sword or sharpening your saw, mentality. And I'm really bad in the fact that I always think that doing real work involves me actually building something for somebody or fixing something, not taking the time to learn something new that could make me more valuable or make it easier to build this stuff. But yeah, the whole thing of saying, take that hour a day, take that, 10% of your time a week to learn new stuff, and then use that to, launch new things that you need to try, or you learn some new thing, you think, I could probably apply that here because they talked about this in this session. Put it out there and see what happens. If it fails, oh well, you would have failed had you not tried it.
Yeah.
And maybe you're going to come up with something that really changes the way your business does their job. So
yeah, definitely. Well, it's been kind of fun going through all these tips and tricks. We are going to be back in 2 weeks after Ignite, and we're going to do a summary of kind of what we learned, what our experiences were. And then we are going to also have Sandra, I always say it wrong, Sandra, are on the webcast with us, kind of giving her perspective as well. So we're going to hear from Tom about what it was like to watch it virtually, hear from me what it was like to attend. I'll probably have a lot of perspective from the vendor area and the Microsoft booths and stuff like that, because that's probably where I'll end up spending most of my time. And then also from community aspects, and then Sandra, as she attends sessions, and even as she steps a little bit out of her SharePoint comfort zone and going in to learn new technologies. And so I think it should be a great recap session, and I'm just looking forward to getting the band back together to kind of talk through things.
There you go.
All right. Well, if there's any questions in the chat window, we'll go ahead and answer them. We hope this has been helpful to you guys. And if there's no questions, we will sign off and see you guys in 2 weeks.
Safe travels, everyone, and enjoy your conference if you're going.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks. And if you see me there, stop and say hi.
Oh, you have a question.
Oh, Eric, what do we expect to be announced? If I had to answer that honestly, I don't know. They announced so much in the May 4th event. I think we're going to start to see some of that actually hit. And then I'm sure they have other announcements to be made, probably more about modern things, but I don't know necessarily that I'm expecting any major, huge announcements. Do I expect that I don't suspect that they will mention the word InfoPath at all. I know Power Apps has got some great features, and Flow has got some great features, and you put them together and potentially it can take care of some InfoPath things, but it's not a full one-to-one replacement. So I have a feeling they won't talk about that, and the story will be the same, keep using InfoPath, but I don't think they're going to come swinging and say that they've got the replacement yet. At least that's my gut. I could be wrong, but I don't think that will happen.
Yeah, I would think if that was going to happen, something would have leaked before now.
Probably.
Because that's a hot button for so many people. So, yeah, I would love to see the replacement. And it's funny because when people tell us, well, InfoPath is bad, Sandra and I are like, we like our InfoPath, we do cool things with it, and we're going to continue to believe that Microsoft is going to come up with something that will replace it. Well, what if they don't? Then we will get another 6 to 7 years of high value usage out of a tool, and we will continue to deliver value during that time.
Yeah.
Because, my attitude on InfoPath was, everybody's like, well, you need to stop right now. It's like, yeah, you could stop right now.
What are you going to do? Yeah.
What are you going to do? Yeah, you can go out and spend, $500,000 to get a replacement from a third party, or you can continue to use this until you look at your support end date, which is 2023 now.
I think that or a little bit later, but it's definitely. Yeah.
And so if you look at it and go, so if you looked at what your IT area looked like 7 years ago and compare it to what you have now, was that what you had envisioned? I'm going to guess the answer is no, unless you're lying. So I'm looking at the fact that in 6 to 7 years, a ton of things will change. And one of those will involve InfoPath, and it probably isn't anything that we're currently thinking about. But if it changes and dies at that point, then I'll come up with something else. So
Eric said, I heard there's no SharePoint Dev MVP speaking, so SharePoint Framework is coming off from Microsoft. That's probably a true statement. Those syntax and semicolons, give me allergies. But I do know Vess is speaking. I know Bill Bear is speaking. But the framework just came out into beta just a couple weeks ago. So that's not typically a surprising thing to not really have a lot of MVPs speaking on something so new. So I think you'll see a lot of Microsoft presence there around that and topics on that. And so the framework and stuff that's coming out, I know they'll be talking a lot about that at Ignite. So that should be good content as well there. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up, guys. So thank you all so much for coming. Hopefully you guys found this helpful, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.